4, go.
Okay, I'm helping my buddy Ben Mack here, hosting this with Michael McCreary, who is a 19-year-old comedian from Canada, correct? He's authentically clean cut. Ben Mack, 47. He's a Disney-approved magician. And but this is a conversation, I suppose. I'm not sure exactly where to go from here, but this is Ben Mack, and that's my introduction.
Thanks, Marshall. Marshall's going to be helping with the Q&A at the end. Let's give Marshall a round of applause for helping me through this. And Marshall is our tour guide, so at any moment I give him permission to take the microphone out of my hand and take control of this room. We will be joined by Michael McCreary. Both of us are Aspies, folks that are officially diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum disorder and having been diagnosed when Asperger's was still a category. Thank you. Check, please. I am just over my 2-year mark in terms of being diagnosed as Aspergerian, and excited to share with you a little bit about some of the tools and techniques that I've found that have helped me with inner peace and able to have more happiness in my life. Today is specifically around NVC, or Nonviolent Communications. It's a framework, and it's a frame that has many positive attributes to it. One of the biggest challenges of using NVC, however, is that you have to find somebody who's willing to engage with you on those within those grounds. And one of the elements of nonviolent communications is letting people know what you observe and what they might observe in you. And in order to bring this conversation into full excitement, I want to start with an exquisite 10-minute video that I got introduced to about a month ago from a wonderful Aspie named Denise, and she said, you got to see this video because I have never been better defined than the way that this video presents what it's like to be Aspergerian. So without further ado, we'll continue as a group in a little bit, but for right now, sit back and enjoy 10 minutes of Aspie comic Michael McCreary. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael McCreary, and welcome to Does This Make My Asperger's Look Big? What I hope to accomplish with this video is to entertain as well as educate people about my life on the spectrum. Now, there's a common misconception amongst the general population that all Aspies are geniuses. Sir Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, Mr. Bean. No one ever talks about Leonard, who lives in his parents' basement and collects mustard packets from around the world. While most Aspies aren't geniuses, many of them do have what we call, in the industry, a narrow focus of concentration. Luckily for you, mine's film and television, and not condiments. Comedy can be very revealing. And people often ask me, why do I keep on doing it? I like to say I draw strength from my influences, such as Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird, George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life, and Rocky from Rocky. So, why do I keep on doing this?
Because I can't sing or dance. Hey, yo.
Oh, hello there. I was once asked in an interview, what's it like to have autism spectrum disorder? I told them, well, it's part of who I am and all I've ever really known. Now, I'm no doctor, but I did play one once in elementary school. And with the help of this lab coat and access to WebMD, I'll attempt to show you what's it like to have autism from my perspective. Autism spectrum disorder is a neurodevelopmental disorder. The term spectrum in autism spectrum disorder refers to the wide variety of severities and symptoms. See, I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a category that falls under the whole autism spectrum. So if somebody ever says, you don't have autism because I watched Rain Man and you're nothing like him, just quote Stephen Shore and say, if you've seen one person with autism, you've seen one person with autism. Now, in order to address the subject, one should familiarize themselves with the terminology. Here is an example of a neurologically typical brain. It is referred to as neurotypical or mainstream. It has the amazing ability to perform a vast array of functions as noted in the diagram, as opposed to my brain, which has other priorities. The neurotypical brain works via a complicated highway system of neurotransmitters containing billions of nerve cells that create synapses to communicate a vast array of tasks to the rest of your body. My brain is not nearly as complicated. While all Aspies are unique, we have many traits that unite us. A group of my colleagues have helped me demonstrate this. You might be an Aspie if
If you have to hold your breath down the detergent aisle,
your pets have more social interaction than you do. If your normal facial expression is your poker face. If people ask, what's making everything shake? And then you realize it's your leg bouncing. If you ever wanted to wear a shirt and tie in high school to increase your sex appeal. If you indicate diary entries by start date.
live long and prosper.
One of the more noticeable challenges for people on the spectrum is our lack of social skills. Perhaps I can offer a solution with some of my very own patented Aspie dating tips. Tip number 8. Sometimes it can be nice to surprise your date. Hi! But not.
Tip 65. When a girl starts a sentence with, it's funny how, there's a very good chance it's not going to be funny.
23. If a girl asks you to rate her out of 10, don't. It's a trap. By the way, 6 is wrong.
Don't worry, though. With the proper training, you can pretend to be just like everybody else. But above all, just be yourself. No, not like that, though. And now a word from our sponsors. Do you find it difficult to look at people? Are you tired of people always demanding eye contact? Well, look no further. Introducing the Socializer. You'll never have to hear, look at me again. Act now and we will include at no additional cost the Socializer contact lenses. Certain conditions apply. Price does not include tax, title, and license. Some assembly required. Weight where prohibited by law. Actual mileage may vary. Batteries not include. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. If conditions persist, contact a physician. Keep out of reach of children. Avoid prolonged exposure to direct sunlight. Keep in a cool, dark place. We tend to be very literal, which can be a problem.
I never know what to say to people at funerals.
No, neither do I. I'm terrible.
Oh, just say, I'm sorry for your loss, then move on. We'll be in our prayers.
Thank you.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Move on.
And a lot of people think we don't have empathy.
What is this feeling I'm feeling right now? It's like I'm sad for another person? Is that a thing? Am I going crazy?
But that's a misconception.
I can see that you're upset, but I don't know what to do.
Could you give me a hug?
Yes?
Adam, I'd like you to give me a hug.
We just might need a little help showing it. It is also thought that people on the spectrum do not have a sense of humor. In a recent study, a group of Aspies were told a joke. How many Aspies does it take to screw in a light bulb? Unfortunately, this polarized the group. 20% felt the light bulb didn't need changing. There's nothing wrong with it the way it is. 13% didn't want anyone touching their light bulb. 7% claimed that you cannot change a light bulb, you can only replace it. 5% argued that the light bulb can be changed by painting it blue. And the remaining 42% of the group preferred the light left off. Please stay tuned for this important message. The Canadian Aspersion, or as it is more commonly known, the Aspie, is a native of snowy climes. This formidable biped is commonly found in basements and other secluded areas, such as comic stores and computer labs. Specimens vary and may include, but are not limited to, techies, physicists, and Macs. They avoid extinction by blending into their surroundings. Omnivorous, the Aspie relies on others for nutrition. They are not inclined to venture out from their chosen habitat. While most known species of Aspies are territorial, they will tolerate others into their sanctuaries for short periods of time. Do not attempt to make eye contact with the Aspie, as they take this to be a sign of unwelcome social interaction. Their territory is marked by an unidentifiable odor, easily recognized by its ability to talk endlessly about its own interests. Sadly, it makes reproduction nearly impossible. Its mode of communication is limited and commonly via electronic interface. Here we observe the Aspie at work and at play. For more information on the Aspie, why not contact www.aspiecomic.com. People often say, I know Aspies are supposed to be very bright. But why can't they get the simplest of jokes? Well, in order to get jokes, one needs to be able to tell that the person telling the joke is joking. This requires a certain level of understanding and nonverbal communication, as well as the ability to read into a person's facial expression, tone of voice, and body language. One also needs to be able to pick up on fake hints, wordplay, and have an awareness for some social subtleties, which can be difficult for someone with Asperger's, as they only have a limited ability to read into nonverbal communications and can only understand the literal and logical meanings of such abstract concepts and words. Or maybe the joke just wasn't that funny. People assume we like to be alone all the time. Sometimes we do, but friends can be nice. Ultimately, not everyone will like me, but there will be those who will accept me for just who I am.
I'm grateful for you guys sharing that with me, and for Michael, for you having created that. And in a little bit, we'll bring Michael on so we can ask questions of Michael in terms of whatever you might be curious about, hopefully in terms of how he navigates for happiness, since this Empower Autism about happiness, love to keep it happiness themed. I have a PowerPoint with a couple slides, and one of the slides shows one of the tools that was created with Empower Autism to help me, and uses the best principles, or in my mind, the basic precepts of nonviolent communications. NVC, nonviolent communications, is a set of agreements and strategies for engagement that often use a moderator, take turns speaking, and we don't label others, so that we don't say, oh, you're being too heady, because that would be like a definitive judgment of sorts. Within nonviolent communications, we might make an observation of saying, you are saying more words than I could track, which could be equivalent to like you're being too heady. I'm talking about specifics of what people sometimes say about me. They often talk about oftener, that nonviolent communications is based on observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And I wanted to take the system and create a tool that was specific for me and helped me. And the tool that I created is a medical alert card. And the medical alert card was something that I needed when I lived here in Asheville at 41 Furman, and had an upstairs handyman who was employed by my landlord. And the landlord and others had chosen that they were not liking me in their apartment building. And so the landlord had instructed the handyman to spray industrial scent on my door. And so I put up signs that said that this is a form of assault, and the next Saturday when the landlord instructed the handyman to do it again and I called the police said that it was not a neighbor assault, even though the man lived above me and that industrial scent appeared to me like assault, but actually a landlord-tenant dispute, and so not for him to get involved with. And the reason why he said this was because I couldn't procure a letter from my doctor at that point saying that I had sensitivities to this industrial scent, which appeared to me as an inappropriate choice for an officer for a peacemaker to make, and yet that was the situation that I was in. So what I did with the work of Empower Autism is to create this medical alert card, and I carry it in my wallet so that if I ever need it again, I've got something that says, hey, these are my medical needs. So this is something they helped me create that is a fold-out card that I can carry on my person. The first time we talked about it was a need that I had at Whole Foods, where a person making the veggie juices had a need to keep me engaged, and I had a need to walk away. And so I need something at times when I have a need to walk away. So let me read these. It's got 4 parts to it. On the part with the medical alert logo, it says, I am an autist, a person diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder. ASD is a complex neurodevelopment disability recognized by the Americans with Disability Act, or ADA. On the back, it says, please be aware that I have sensory challenges where sounds, lights, and chemical smells and a request for my attention can appear as an assault to me. Questions can be addressed to, and then I give my email address. On the inside, it says, you may notice impaired social interaction, verbal and nonverbal communication, and restricted and or repetitive behavior, particularly when troubled. I may cry, rock, stare off, twiddle objects, appear tightly wound, close eyes, or display other actions, which are often no big deal. That's like the most important thing for me to communicate to people, that these things are no big deal. If I were to suddenly start crying in this presentation, I would keep going. The fact that I have tears coming out of my eyes, to me, is no big deal. I've been through it hundreds of times. What becomes a big deal is people making a big deal out of it. And here it comes. Allow me to demonstrate it for you now. Also on the inside is reasonable accommodation for me includes avoiding unnecessary questions. 1 question at a time. Do not stack questions. I may not be able to process verbal communication and may need things written out. Being left alone, allowing me to take space. Please do not touch without consent, and sometimes I may need a support person present. So this, in a nutshell, communicates my special needs and enables me, empowers me to advocate for my own civil rights. The other tools that appear to me similar is a tool that I've ordered yet has not shown up, and I ordered it in early October. One of the things I love about Asperger's is they're really good at coming up with tools. One of the things that challenges me about Aspies is that they don't always do what they say they're going to do by when they say they get distracted. And Jeffrey, our videographer, who we had a tech, isn't. Thank you, Kirsten, for. This is funnier to the people in the room than watching the replay. But so from a place called ASD Visual Aids, this dealing with Offner in terms of observations and feelings and needs, and I could go back to the card. I didn't do as I had planned of looking at the 4 different elements of Offner and how that card does it. But what this bracelet does, or I guess we're going back to the card, what the bracelet does is the bracelet makes the request of, please leave me alone. Because there are times I just get full. And while a woman who spoke earlier, who's over in Ray's session right now because she can see this on replay, Priscilla is one of my best friends. And in terms of Aspies, she and I have talked about how we appear very similar to each other. And we talk about sometimes differences between us and other Aspies. For instance, a brilliant woman who spoke earlier today here is Jade. And Jade and Priscilla and I have very different challenges when it comes to being autistic. Many people, when they interact with Jade, recognize that there's something different, and she can communicate in certain ways for folks to go slow and to accommodate her sensory needs. However, Priscilla and I, folks often appear to us as not only not recognizing that, but sometimes it appears to us as folks need to come and speak faster to us than they speak to neurotypicals. We don't understand how we create this. But it appears to both Priscilla and I that regularly neurotypicals will not only sometimes focus us out or come in and zoom in on us, but need to speak really quickly to us and us alone. And I need times to simply say no thank you. Priscilla and I introduced her to this term and she likes it, will refer to those folks as IRAs, as an I require attention. And they might require attention, but they're not entitled to mine. And oftentimes their attention jams my systems. And I feel entitled to the peace to step away and to say, I wish you well, I'm taking myself out of this. So the medical alert card, and thank you so much, Lauren, for bringing it up. If we look at observations, feelings, needs, it doesn't have the request here. But in terms of following the NVC framework, observations, you may notice, here are things you can observe about me. Needs, please be aware I have sensory challenges. These are my needs. The feelings, well, I'm not going to put my feelings on this. My feeling is that when I've broken out my medical alert card, my feeling is that I am anxious or stressed or something along those lines. In terms of requests, the armband is a request. The armband is a visual. It can be turned inside out. It's red and green, and so when it's green, it says, hey, I'm open to talking, and when it's red, it's please leave me alone. I wish that there were more companies that made this available, and I just reordered it again, so I just spent another $20 to get it sent from England, and hopefully this time it will show up. Before we open it up to Q&A and have Marshall back up to moderate, I want to talk about another tool that appears to me as honoring the intentions of nonviolent communications, but isn't set up to be structured along those ways. It's a tool that I call masterminding, or others call masterminding, and the gentle person who is producing this Google Hangout, Lauren Strand, is somebody who I have masterminded with in terms of helping to produce Peace Day Asheville, an international event that we had at UNCA here on September 21st. And it's a tool for interconnectedness. Because when I read the philosophy of nonviolent communications, they talk about how the goal of nonviolent communications is interconnectedness. Now, while I enjoy friends, I enjoy time with friends, I enjoy interaction with others, I'm an Aspie through and through, and boy, do I love frameworks. And I love things to be predictable. And so to this end, I use a construct that is called CREST. It's a model that I co-created with a gentleman in Florida named Brian McLeod. And it is a construct, a structure, for a 1-hour interconnection between a group of folks, whether it be entrepreneurs, whether it be authors that want to get a book done. But what's specific to autism is that I would love to help a group of parents get together to have a weekly telephone mastermind, to interconnect with other parents, to talk about what it is to parent a young autist. Now, autists are welcome. If you're an autistic parent, you're welcome, and there are other masterminds that are going on. But the one that I'm hoping to start here, whether it be in Asheville or otherwise, we're going to do a training Wednesday night here in Asheville at Lenore Rhine, follows this construct. It's a 5-step process. And how I came up with this was I went and I interviewed 40 self-made millionaires about their masterminding habits. And the first thing that I found interesting was all 40 of these self-made millionaires had some sort of practice they called masterminding. So that was an insight in and of itself, that masterminding was an effective tool for self-development. Then I asked them, and there were, between the 40 of them, there was a huge range of different processes. I, as an Aspie, love knowing when something's going to start and when it's going to end. I crave that sometimes. And so we engineered this CREST mastermind to be a 1-hour mastermind. It follows this 5-step process with the acronym of CREST, C-R-E-S-T. CREST is, you guys have heard of Andrew Carnegie, the Carnegie Libraries? And Andrew Carnegie, while being what some might call a robber baron, also was a true believer in education, creating libraries across the United States, and had a, what I might call a woo-woo side to him that isn't popularly reported. And he would do these in-home masterminds, meeting with other people that he cared to develop himself with, and they would read a script that begins with the notion of, I forgive myself, I release, I am getting myself into a positive energy to absorb the trusting guidance of those that are around me. We read the actual words that Andrew Carnegie would read in his own in-home mastermind. Then the second step of the CREST mastermind is this R, a round of gratitude. We go around and we say one thing for which in that moment that we're grateful for. And that's a proven technique to help get people centered, to help bring people together, and also to get people to listen and care about the values and passions of others. When we hear what other people are grateful for, it allows us a gateway, a little keyhole into what's going on for them. And then everyone gets 7 minutes. So we go around and each of the mastermind participants gets 7 minutes in order to ask questions or share things with the rest of the group. There's a little bit of a formal structure where we ask whether or not the person accomplished their SMART goal from the last mastermind. And then once everybody gets their 7 minutes, then we state a SMART goal, and that's a specific measurable action that's realistic and time-bound. Psychologists the world over have observed that humans will regularly overestimate what they can accomplish in a month, but underestimate what they can accomplish in a year with week-over-week attention to that goal and incremental steps. And SMART goals are a way to help bring that through to fruition in a year, stacking the SMART goals, specific measurable actions that are realistic and time-bound. And then we read the T for CREST. It's a little bit of a force fit. I made the Carnegie Covenant. It's the words that he would use to close the mastermind and transition into his next state of optimal mind for whatever he was hoping to be effective at next. And this is the CREST 1-hour mastermind. And on Wednesday, over at the, you know, the visitor center here in Asheville, right off of the 240, Lenore Ryan is in the visitor center, in that building. If you go up to the 3rd floor at 5 p.m., we're going to have a class specifically on masterminding. Entrepreneurs will be there, but I am the one audience I keep inviting again and again are parents of children on the spectrum, because I would so love to get a mastermind going among parents. So at this point, I think, Lauren, I forget, is there another slide, or is that the last slide?
Last slide.
Awesome. That's the voice of a mastermind partner. Lauren, do you mind if I put you on the spot for a moment before I hand the microphone to Marshall and ask you a question or two about masterminding? Would that be all right with you?
You may. I'll come out from behind the back.
Thanks. Let's give Lauren a round of applause. And we want to thank Christine Madera with Soul-Centered Business Consulting for having covered the cost today for producing this event. And so let's give Christine a round of applause for doing that. And Lauren, you and me and Christine and 5 others were masterminding together to help co-create the international event, Google Hangout we created around Peace Day. Could you explain in 30 seconds or less what masterminding opened up or allowed for you, for us?
Masterminding for me really gave me a sense, first of all, of peace with myself and my family. I'd come away from these sessions focused, connected, and frankly, I'd feel more joy in my life. That's really what I felt. My wife would say, "You're happier after these sessions," because what I was doing was being able to do things with people that felt joyful. We were making progress. We were supporting and having a wonderful time looking at things that we could do week over week with each other. And as we did that, we were able to accomplish a lot of wonderful things, things that helped promote peace, peaceful feelings, peace among people, peace with nature. And it was an eye-opening construct to me that I learned brought me great joy, and I hope that I brought others great joy as well.
You absolutely did. Thank you, Lauren. And if folks join us online with questions, I'd be grateful if you would speak up and let Marshall know the questions so that Marshall can redirect them to Michael or myself as appropriate. Will you be willing to speak up? Awesome. Thank you so much. And now, before I hand the microphone to Marshall, Michael, would you mind if I ask you a question before I turn it over to Marshall in the Q&A with the fine folks here at University of North Carolina, Asheville?
I do not mind at all.
Fantastic. Now, I have to share with the audience, I was hard-pressed to actually show the video that Denise Junk recommended to me of, does this make my Asperger's look big? Once I saw the video of 14-year-old Michael doing stand-up about what it was to be an Aspie and 14, this man showed a command of the stage at 14 that was confidence par excellence. And before a question, Michael, I simply want to get this audience to give you a round of applause for what you brought to light.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if you could hear the applause and the laughter while we showed your video, but you guys, that shed a lot of light, and for me it well reflected things that I've experienced. I'm curious, if you don't mind answering, how old were you when you were diagnosed, Michael?
I was diagnosed at the age of 5.
And at what point did you begin turning your self-awareness into something that you would do on stage and share with others to get a humorous response?
Well, that's the interesting thing, Ben. I've been in theater all my life, since actually around the age of 5. I was just always, I just wanted excuses to talk, so I tried to find outlets, you know, just to get up on stage and really connect with people and do things. So I got involved in a lot of community theater programs. But stand-up was a development that I only stumbled upon in my grade 7 and 8 years, when I was becoming far more ostracized at school. Never bullied, but ostracized. People sort of outgrew me, or vice versa. I'm not sure what happened, but the comedy was sort of an outlet for me to just sort of vent what was going on really in my life at that period. Just sort of just telling people about the anguish I was feeling, about the alienation and whatnot, but in a much more accessible way. I mean, it's one thing just to sort of rant at a therapist. It's another thing to get up in front of a bunch of people and just sort of talk at them, and hopefully they laugh. Like, I always view that stand-up is like really one-sided group therapy, where one person talks for the entire time and everyone else is too polite to tell them to shut up. So that's just kind of my that's my spin on things.
Fantastic. And Marshall Pyle, I'm now going to hand the microphone over to you, and if folks have a question, I've got another microphone, and I think I've got another microphone. I do have another microphone. And Sean is going to catch you on video. Who has a question for Michael? Who wants to pretend like they've got a question for Michael? Marshall has a question for Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, what's up?
Do I have a question?
Sure.
Do I?
I don't know.
I'm actually more learning about this whole deal, so I mean, I honestly don't.
We could end it quick, or Michael, I can do some of my shameless self-promotion while they think of a question. Is that all right with you? They're fantastic.
I don't hear Ben.
Stand up, please. And your name is?
Ben, we don't hear the question. We're going to need the other microphone.
Okay, cool. Here, I'll be the human mic stand. I'm perfectly good with that. Here we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, background, my son is 8, but since he was able to communicate, he has been incredibly nervous at the beginning of any social interaction with anyone, specifically strangers. But when given a camera or put on stage, he just does fantastically. And I'm just curious if that was your experience also, and if so, if you could comment on what your perspective is about that.
No, that's a really relatable subject you brought up there. That's and congrats to your son, by the way. That's wonderful that he's sort of found his calling. I find that a lot of kids on the spectrum sort of appear more confident or more at ease when they're working with something that directly pertains to their interests. I mean, when I was a kid at the age of 5, I mean, I was. You probably noticed that I have this debilitating inability to not stop talking, but I mean, it would be about certain things that interest me. I mean, be it film, performing, Thomas the Tank Engine, Pokemon, whatever really interests me. So there are a lot of kids out there on the spectrum who do really excel when things directly interest them, when things are more accessible to them, I find.
She says thank you, and thank you for that question. What a wonderful question. I am going to use this opportunity to shamelessly self-promote and tie it back into some of what you've said, Michael. I am the author of this book called Think 2 Products Ahead. It was the #2 best-selling book on Amazon for 4 days. The day before we launched it, pre-sales to Harry Potter 5 came out. We never stood a chance. To shamelessly self-promote myself, one of my favorite quotes on the back is from Kevin Roberts, who back then was only the CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi Worldwide. Now he's the executive chairman. Saatchi & Saatchi is one of the world's top 10 leading ad agencies. And he wrote, "Creating loyalty beyond reason and moving from irreplaceable to irresistible is job #1 for all marketers today. Mac's book will help get you there." Now, many people look at me and they wind up saying, "Hey, Ben, how is it that you aren't a corporate executive these days? How is it that you wound up as an artist and not having the traditional trappings of success?" And Michael, something that you mentioned earlier so resonated with me, which was as you aged, you found yourself isolated or separated from different groups, whether you outgrew them or they outgrew you. And I found that similarly within marketing and advertising and other things in my life. It wasn't just in school. Similar to Michael, I found that the older I got, in many ways, the more isolated I got. And in hindsight, since I didn't get this new diagnosis to me until 3 years ago, when I got the diagnosis, all of a sudden so much made more sense to me. Reading the biographies of other Aspies helped me understand so much. By the way, I got this used off of Amazon, but if somebody wants a copy, it's normally like $22 online, and I'd be happy to sell you this copy for $10. I also have copies with me of my novel, where the first edition looks beautiful, and I won't sell this. The second edition doesn't look as beautiful to me, but if you wanted a copy of this, these would be $20 a piece. They're $23 on Amazon. To spurg out on you a little bit, if you will, this has codes and puzzles inside of codes and puzzles, where if you take the title Poker Without Cards and translate it into Hebrew, and then look at the Hebrew Grammatica, the numbers, what those letters total is 707, and look at it base 3, you get 121,212, 12, 12, 12, and I did a big art project on 12, 12, 12, asking people around every time zone to stand up for peace, something that we hope still gets manifested. But this was the last book that the great philosopher Robert Anton Wilson endorsed before he died, and I sent a copy to Kurt Vonnegut because I sought to appropriate his character Howard Campbell, because I was working at BBDO, an ad agency, when I was writing this, and when Kurt Vonnegut wrote his breakthrough novel, he was working as a publicist at GE. And so I asked Kurt if I could appropriate his character, and he wrote back, "Ben Mack, since you don't have the guts to be a homosexual, I'm glad that you're pissing off your parents by writing." We also have, for instance, Douglas Rushkoff said, "May this clever virus infect the media space before it's too late." One of my favorite quotes came from, oh, darn, it's not on the back. The gentleman who wrote Microsoft Word, like the computer program Microsoft Word, gave me a testimonial that I don't have memorized, but that's the kind of mind that sometimes I attract and interact with. You know, the guy that wrote Microsoft Word. And so, Michael, I've done what you talked about earlier, not being able to shut up.
Perfectly.
Thank you, Marshall. And we've got 3 more minutes of the scheduled time. I'm hoping for one more question for Michael, so it wasn't just an excuse for me to go off on my rants and shamelessly promote my materials and invite you guys for Wednesday night to the Autism Mastermind. Who else has a question for Michael so that we might conclude on a question for him, from him, answer from him? Yeah, fantastic.
You know, you may have already said, but where do we find your work? Where are you from? And how do we hear more of you? Because that was excellent. We just loved it.
Thank you so much. Well, I would give you a card, but there's a screen in the way. Right now, actually, I'm from Toronto, Ontario. So if you want to reach me, you can find me at www.aspycomic.com. And from there, you can just get links to my Facebook page, to my Twitter page. Really need to update that. And from there, actually, if you'd like, there is a page that that me and my parents kind of helped develop, about where we just have this list of sensory-based games. It has nothing to do with comedy, but if you ever feel like the world is just sort of ganging up on you, it is just a series of constant, ever-growing list of games where you just sit down and relax for a little bit. And it's just like pouring sand into a pit or just drawing a song. It makes sense in context. Awesome. But there's a lot of stuff out there that's definitely worth checking out.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Back here, one more question.
Hi. Thank you so much. I admire your confidence at such a young age about your Asperger's. My question is, was there ever a time where you didn't want other folks to know and you didn't wear it out in the open so much?
That's actually, that is a very good question. You see, to me, Asperger's, I was diagnosed when I was 5. So as a 5-year-old, I had bigger fish to fry. Like, I didn't really, the Asperger's thing wasn't a revelation to me at all. I was completely impartial to it. It was more how it affected the people around me, such as my family, friends, who were just kind of coping and understanding that, okay, so that's the reason he's like that. And it was never really so much a struggle, aside from, I mean, there was one kid in my grade 3 class that made fun of the name for Asperger's, but I mean, he was in grade 3, so I mean, that was kind of an inevitable thing. But honestly, the Asperger's, because of the, I'm so lucky to have had the upbringing that I did, because my folks my younger brother was diagnosed when he was 3 years old before me, and he was diagnosed and is profoundly challenged nonverbal autistic. So when I was diagnosed with Asperger's, my folks kind of went autism light. They knew exactly what to do to a lesser degree to accommodate my needs. So really, I'm just very lucky to have been born and diagnosed in the time and place that I was, because there are so many people only getting diagnosed now. So it's I've never really let it define me as a person. Asperger's is like throwing a dart at a map and sort of saying, you are in the vicinity of Asperger's, but you are not Asperger's, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
Any more questions? Michael, on behalf of Empower Autism and Sylvia and Samantha and the psychology department here at UNCA, the folks in this room, myself, Lauren Strand, Marshall Pyle, I thank you so much for joining us on the stage, and thank you for sharing your comedy. It has lightened me and many Aspies around the world, and I wish you fame, and may you be invited to speak at more and more Aspergerian seminars. Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
It was my pleasure, Ben. Thank you so much.
Lauren, I think that we're about ready to close it up, and I'm going to do one last. We've got one more question before we go. Yes?
What's the video called? I missed that, and how could I access it to show to other people?
Fantastic. Not a problem. Go ahead.
The video is called "Does This Make My Asperger's Look Big?" You just type it right into Facebook, and it'll be the first one to come up.
It's on Facebook, yes, or YouTube. Another question over here.
YouTube, sorry about that. I'm behind by a couple decades.
We are filming all this, and you can find this tonight, a replay, at facebook.com/branding. That's my site. So don't search for branding in Facebook. Simply go to facebook.com/branding, and you'll find a replay of this here tonight. Otherwise, Empower Autism will have this link, and I'm not sure the best way to find it in the future. On behalf of Marshall Pyle, myself, Lauren Strand, Michael McCreary, and all of those, thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye. Thanks, Lauren.